And now, an Envision Financial podcast with Luke Smith on Canberra's 2CC.
That's right, it's Luke Smith from Envision Financial Services staring at me from across the other side of the desk wondering what's going on.
It's just nice to be out of the wind.
It's a bit breezy out there, isn't it?
Oh, it just needs to go away.
It will. It'll settle down. You know, we're looking forward to a relatively nice weekend, I believe. Today, we're going to ask the most important question in the world.
Potentially.
How much do I need in my super to retire?
Yeah, I actually don't like that question. And what we want to try and get people thinking about today is, how could I focus on things that are more important? And I know that sounds silly, but everyone comes in and goes, well, how much do I need? And my first question to them is, what are your living costs going to be? Because a huge misconception is that, well, if I have more in there, it'll achieve what I want. And all I want to illustrate today is you could have $1 million in your super and generate $20,000 of income. You could have $1 million in your super and generate $70,000 of income. Now, they're two very extreme examples that would have different levels of risk associated with them. So I want people to start thinking, what do I need to generate in the place of what do I need to have? Because we need to start thinking more holistically around the ways that you could get to your number. Let's say I need $100,000. I'll just make up a number. Now, if I have $2 million in superannuation and I take 5%, then I'm going to get there. That's great. If I want to just live off my income, then I'm going to need a lot more to do that. If I'm willing to live off my income and my earnings, so again, if we have $1 million and we need $100,000, you need 10%. If we had an average return of 7, which is fairly consistent for a portfolio with 70% in growth assets and 30% in defensive assets, 7% over the longer term is pretty consistent, then you're only going to take 3% of your capital to fund the way you live. If you want to just live off dividends, then you're going to need a lot more in your super to generate that $100,000 number. So I want people to think about, what is the number that we plan on living on? And then how am I going to generate that through the various resources that are available to me? Now, superannuation is just one resource. You might have rent from a property. You might have rent from a commercial property. You might have dividends from a company that you operated your business out of, and you and your partner are going to take $80,000 a year with the tax paid from the franking credits, and then a little bit less or a little bit out of super to get to your number. So there's loads of ways that you can use resources and assets, not just super, to get to whatever your number is. But I find too many people come in and I go, well, what do you need to live on? I don't know. And then they look at me and go, can I retire? And I go, I don't know. Because they're the key facts that people want in relation to clarity and consistency. And I want to shift people's thinking around the benefit of a form of employment. Now, I get that people work their whole life and they get very tired and they get overdoing 40 or 50 hours, depending on what occupation you're in. And they go, right, I'm done and I'm never working again. But I often find that people realise that a lot of their social interactions and friendship groups are sometimes heavily reliant on people in the workforce. And you take yourself out of that, you then create an isolated environment where you could get bored. And I've had plenty of wives tell me that, you know, I love my husband, but I don't love him every day for 24 hours a day and lunch. So go and do something. Because two sides of a partnership may already have a routine. She may already be doing this and he may already be doing that, depending on who's retired when. So you need to have an understanding of, well, what do we need to live on? And then how am I going to generate it? Because if I gave you a choice and I said, save me $500,000 in super, or go and work at Bunnings 2 days a week and earn me $25,000, what's easier? And a lot of people go, well, 2 days at Bunnings or 2 days at the dentist or 2 days at the florist or whatever the 2 days are, 3 days, whatever you do to generate $25,000 of income is a darn sight easier than saving me another $500,000 in your super. But again, if we use that 5% example, if I take 5% of $500,000 in super, that will give me $25,000 of money to meet my living costs. Or I could do 2 days of work. So I think shifting your mindset around part-time work can be hugely powerful and a key contributing factor to what is my number. Because everybody wants their super to last forever. I get that. Everybody wants to see their super go up all the time. I get that. There'll be periods where that happens. There'll be periods where that doesn't happen. There'll be periods where something happens that's out of your control and all of a sudden you need X amount of money for something. And you go, oh, I don't want to pull it out of there. Can I make it up? Does that affect how I live? So I want people to think about working on a part-time basis as a really, really powerful resource. And I've got loads of people that I look after that go, right, next year we're going on a couple of bender holidays. I'll go out and get a contract for this or that so that you can use a lot of what's earned to cover those one-off costs or, special trips so that your core invested value is far more sustainable and is less likely to be impacted by a capital withdrawal. But it all comes back to saying, what do I need to live on, not how much do I have? Another great example, I have people come in with investment properties all the time and go, look at all these properties. And I go, show me the income. Oh, well, that one's negative and that one's negative and that one's neutral and that one's positive and that one's negative. Okay, so what are you going to live on? And now we need to start selling them because you haven't extinguished enough debt, or the yield from the particular asset is less than you could get from other investment opportunities, regardless of what they are. So we've always got to look at an asset and say, why have I got it? And then what is it doing for me? And just because I've always had it is not an answer. Because we need to come back to how are we going to generate X amount of money so that we can live? Because everybody comes in and says, Luke, we're just average people. We are not extravagant. And I breathe a sigh of relief. Oh, that's wonderful. I'm yet to meet anybody that's extravagant. And then the next line out of their mouth could be, well, I just need $70,000 a year to live. Or as a lady said to me earlier this week, I'm scraping by on $400,000 a year. I'm just an average person. Now, I'm not sure if she was sober, but again, in everybody's eyes, they're just average people. Mm-hmm. But you need to know your number. So the much better way of having clarity and comfort coming in to see somebody like me is we've worked out we need this to live. I've worked out I want that to live on. Then we can come up with strategies and structures around where we're going to get it from, which can then drive a change in behaviour or maximise financial decisions between now and whenever you choose to retire or reduce your work hours. But we need to start with a number and work backwards from there, not worry about the capital sum.
So the question, how much do I need in super, is kind of a little bit misleading. It's more about working out where you want to arrive. What is the destination you have in mind?
100%. And
then plotting the route to get there.
Exactly. Work backwards. Exactly right. Yeah, because the capital number, as I said at the start, you could have $1 million earn 20, $1 million earn 70, $1 million earn 100. That comes with different levels of risk that you may or may not be able to tolerate. So it's very important that we've got a viable number. And I'd rather tell people, hey, listen, that number's not going to be sustainable for very long because of X. Or, yeah, that number's fine. If we do this, this and this, there'll be more than enough to generate that. Because after all, people just want peace of mind and clarity. That's why they come to somebody to get advice, to understand that they can achieve what they want to do with peace of mind and clarity. And they walk in with their fingers crossed and go, well, hopefully I haven't left it too late. Please tell me to be all right. And if that means that they need to change some behaviours between now and whenever they need to stop, okay, then so be it. But nobody's ever got upset about working towards something with structure. Everyone gets upset about walking in at 59 and 10 months old and go, so this super thing, should I be looking at that because I'm going to retire in November at 60? And I used to have a balaclava in a drawer in my office, but I don't have any drawers under my desk anymore where I would actually pull a balaclava out and go, look, there's a Westpac down the road. Let me know how you go. So again, preparation provides clarity. Clarity leads to good decisions,
yeah,
and consistency in retirement, which ultimately is what everybody wants.
You mentioned something a moment ago about people maybe having some investment properties, and then when you go through them, what's the income? And there is none because they're all negatively geared. Correct. Or some of them might be neutrally geared.
Yep.
That's one of the things that people often use as a reasoning for investing in a portfolio of properties. They aim to set themselves up for retirement, but you're not going to be able to do that if there's no income from it, are you?
Correct. And the flip side to that is, well, you've made, and I had this conversation this week, you've made an amazing amount of capital gain on that property. So you've absolutely crushed it, which is fantastic. But if you look at the income side now against what you get against the value of it, in that example, they were getting $15,000 off a $1.8 million house. And you look at that as a yield and go, wow, that's horrible. So you've already done the hard yards and made the money. Now you need to shift the thinking. And again, we come back to, why have I got it? What is it doing for me? The why have I got it 20 years ago, great. Bought it cheap, prices went up, good location, area got gentrified, beautiful, wonderful result. But from an income perspective, it's horrible. Now, I find a lot of people are far more concerned about their cash flow in retirement than the capital value of an asset. And I think that's where people need to look and say, how can I manage my yield? You need to be in a super fund that lets you control dividends. You need to be in a super fund or a family trust that lets you control franking credits. You need flexibility in relation to your investment options. And you need to think with a much broader lens as to how I'm going to generate ongoing income to fund the way I want to live. So even if you have that example where you've made an amazing amount of money, yes, you might sell it and pay some tax. Okay. But there are contribution strategies and things that you can use to minimize that. But think about the opportunity cost. So in that particular example, we had a net position of, say, 1.2. Now, at 6 or 7%, that's a much, much bigger number than $15,000 a year ongoing. So you would recoup the difference and pay some tax. Because if I offered to them, well, I'll buy it off you at what you bought it for, they went, hang on, I'm happy to pay some. So again, we need to keep things in context around the use of the asset and the wonderful achievement that you've already locked in, and then how you parlay that achievement into greater flexibility and control. And in that example, they wanted to give money to the kids to knock off their mortgages so that they could see the value of their decisions right now rather than waiting until they'd passed to give it to the kids, which as a parent, that's all we do it for, right? So it's about using the assets you have for the family outcomes that you want to try and achieve, and part of that is looking after the kids and then funding a lifestyle that you can have as much control and flexibility over as possible.
Luke Smith from Envision Financial is with me in the studio today, and we're addressing the question, how much do I need of my super in order to retire? The answer is, you're asking the wrong question.
Yes, look, exactly right. I think a better question is, what do I need to generate? Or how much income do I need? They're probably two better questions that I think will get people much faster to the end number and the peace of mind that they're after. Because if you make an assumption at 4 or 5% and go backwards, that'll get you to your number. And then you can look and say, well, what assets do I have to generate that? And that's when you start to get a little granular around, okay, well, what do I get out of that property? What do I get out of that commercial? What do I get out of that? What do I get out of this? What do I get out of a trust? What do I get out of my super? And how they are invested will then have a direct impact on the rate of return and the consistency of your return. Because I often say, if the speed limit's 100 and you did 180, that's dangerous. But I think if you did 40 in a 100 zone, that's just as dangerous, because you're going to annoy a lot of people and be late getting where you're going. Now, that's being too defensive. So I think if you drove 90 to 110 in a 100 zone, you have to understand the composition.
90 to 100. I do not recommend exceeding the speed limit in any way, shape or form, because if you do and you get a ticket, it's your fault.
Well, you obviously don't drive down Gungahlin Drive in the morning.
I do drive down Gungahlin Drive, and if anybody's going in excess of the speed limit, good luck to them.
Well, you've got to go over the speed limit just to stay up in traffic.
Anyway, no, you do not.
You need to think about the composition of your assets. If you're leading into retirement, where you've been in an industry fund may have been appropriate while you're accumulating, but I find you want greater control over income distributions, franking credits, cost and flexibility, which for a lot of those structures you don't get. And that's not that we don't like them, but as I say, a mini will not pull a horse float, and that's exactly what I'm referring to. Have the right structure to generate the right amount of income with the controls that you want. Think about what it is you're going to need to live on. Think about your ad hoc payments in relation to capital. Be organised and be prepared so that you've got strategic decisions working in your favour prior to retirement. Consider the source of the money. Is some coming from super? Is some coming from a dividend from a company? Is some coming from rental? Is some coming from crypto? Is some coming from a llama farm? Wherever it's coming from, just look at your ability to work and consider part-time occupation, because it is a very powerful replacement for capital. And I think if you come at it with that approach with how much do I need to live on, you can then work backwards in relation to your assets with a great deal of certainty and clarity.
Fantastic. Obviously, the idea of going back to work is not necessarily going to appeal to everybody, but
not for everybody, but
but
it's also not. It's great for your mind, evidently.
Well,
evidently,
if you've still got one, yeah.
If you still got one.
I think the boredom factor is the one thing that really does surprise some people when they finally get to retire, and then they go, hang on, this isn't quite what I thought it would be.
And I think a lot of people go back and work as well in an area of more interest.
Yeah. That's right.
And then they get a lot more joy out of giving back or working and earning a few dollars in something that they actually enjoy doing.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Luke, where can listeners get more information?
Yeah, office number 62604749. We've got envisionfinancial.com.au on the internet. We've got the podcast, The Strategy Stacker, Luke Talks Money on iTunes and Spotify. We've got Envision Financial Canberra, where we've got a backlog of all of our shows. And we've got Smart Money Strategy, your ultimate guide to financial planning, in all good bookstores and online.
Fantastic. And that Envision Financial Canberra is the channel on YouTube.
Correct. Exactly right.
Where you can see Luke and my good self.
We are.
On video.
We are. That's it.
You know, I
Looking sharp.
should be paid danger money, shouldn't I?
Probably.
Luke, thanks very much for coming in.
See you next week, mate.
Luke Smith from Envision Financial, and Luke will be back with us once again, at the usual time next Friday between 4:30 and 5.